the Independent News tonight, doctors find a potentially cancerous growth and schedule President Reagan for major surgery. A new U.S. warning of military retaliation against terrorists, why the shuttle mission was aborted just seconds before takeoff, and a preview of Live Aid.
Good evening, I'm Morton Dean. There was a disturbing announcement in Washington earlier today. President Reagan, who went to the hospital for a minor operation, will remain there for a major operation. It'll be performed tomorrow at Bethesda Naval Hospital. John Obashan is at the White House and has the latest details. John?
Mort, the surgery will take about 3 hours. It'll begin about midday tomorrow. We're told now this evening that it could begin shortly before noon tomorrow, and the president will be hospitalized from 7 to 10 days. Surgeons will remove what's being described here as a large polyp or growth that appears to be precancerous. Of course, doctors won't know for sure what they're dealing with until tomorrow morning right before the surgery when they get the results of a biopsy that's being done overnight. But the endoscopic examination of his colon today using a flexible fiber optics instrument showed that it looked like a villus adenoma. That's a medical term meaning a glandular tumor that is usually either benign or a low-grade malignancy. It's located in the cecum. That's right where the small intestine joins the large intestine. The surgeon who will perform the operation, Dr. Dale Aller, he's a Navy captain, says the president is in superior condition and chances for a normal and full recovery are excellent. That quote given to us this afternoon late by White House spokesman Larry Speaks. The president helicoptered to camp to Bethesda at 1:30 this afternoon for removal of a small, less worrisome polyp. The doctors at Bethesda discovered during a checkup there during March. Doctors found that that polyp had shrunk since March, that it was removed this afternoon through the colon. Then a complete colon exam showed doctors that new, larger growth. This will be the second major surgery the 74-year-old Reagan has had while in office. The first, of course, was after the 1981 assassination attempt. After the new growth was discovered today, Reagan was given the choice of having the surgery immediately this weekend or waiting 2 to 3 weeks. Mrs. Reagan was at his side. They discussed it, and he decided to go ahead now. We're told that he's in good spirits tonight, Mort, resting comfortably and ready for tomorrow's surgery.
John, who will be running the show at the White House during the president's absence?
Of course, the president in major surgery will be under general anesthesia. That means he will be out of action literally for at least 3 hours, more really when one considers the recovery time in the recovery room. The 25th Amendment to the Constitution, adopted in 1967, provides that in the event of presidential incapacity, the vice president shall assume power. But the White House is being very foggy on that this evening, deliberately so, because we understand that they do not wish to set a precedent. They don't want this presidential surgery to be a precedent for future transfers of power. The White House is willing to say only this: we are prepared for any contingency. The vice president will be in Kennebunkport, Maine at his summer home over the weekend. We're told he still plans to continue those plans, and he will, of course, be available.
Thank you, John. John Obashan at the White House this evening. INN's Health and Science editor, Dr. Alan Bruckheim, is aiding in our coverage of the story. Alan, how do doctors know that the growth is pre-cancerous?
Well, the precancerous means that they're staging it. There is normal tissue that we look at and looks normal to us, and there is cancerous tissue, which is highly irregular. And there are stages in between. Now, there's been some changes in the tissue that they found on the biopsy. The doctors were really very, very surprised when they did what they did today. They went past this growth that they were operating on, pushed their scope all around the intestine and came into the cecum, where the appendix is also located, and found this new growth with this, which they're calling an adenoma at this time.
If during the operation the doctors do learn that the growth is cancerous, what then?
They're going to have to do a major operation. They will check all of the lymph glands in the area.
They will continue this operation?
They will continue. This operation will be the definitive one. Whatever they find, they will have to do when they're in there now. And if they have cancer, they're going to have to take out a piece of this bowel and some of the areas around it and do what is ever necessary to give the president continuity of his bowel system.
Taking a worst-case scenario, what chances of recovery if cancer of the colon is found?
There are very good chances of recovery. There's probably a longer period of time of convalescence. There may be necessary chemotherapy, radiation, but the chances of the cure are very, very high, and I really think they're getting this at a very early stage, and so the outlook is good.
Alan, let us assume and hope that no cancer is found. What kind of recovery will the president experience from this operation?
He's going to be a sick man for a few days. This is a real abdominal operation. It's a major operation, major anesthesia, and for 3 to 4 days, he's not going to feel too well, and then gradually he'll be coming back to himself.
Alan, thank you. Dr. Alan Bruckheim, and we'll be back with more news in a moment.
The Independent News, brought to you by the cereals of General Mills and by Sanka brand.
The countdown hit T-3. The engines were straining, but Space Shuttle Challenger is still on the launch pad. We'll tell you what went wrong next on the Independent News.
Come on in, take a seat. We're gonna tell you what the big boys eat. Name is Wheaties, kick a wheat. Now you know what the big boys eat. Hello, milk, come on in. Jump in, berry, have a swim. Wheaties, Wheaties, not too sweet. Now go tell your mama what the big boys eat.
Part of your good breakfast.
Lunchtime. Everybody's in a hurry. If I'm going to get them back to work on time, I got to stay on my toes. And if there's one thing I don't want, it's a lot of caffeine. So Sanka's the only coffee on my coffee break. Now that's a good cup of coffee. And like I said, Sanka doesn't have all that caffeine. That way, I can give them fast service with a smile.
The coffee that lets you be your best. Sanka brand decaffeinated coffee.
We're taking you to the movies this month. Listen. Mel Gibson in the free TV premiere of The Year of Living Dangerously. Lindsay Wagner in the sizzling 3-part special Scruples. Frederick March in the American classic The Best Years of Our Lives. Betty Davis and Henry Fonda in Jezebel. Greta Garbo in Ninochka. Cary Grant in Arsenic and Old Lace. Jeff Bridges in Bad Company. Marlon Brando and George C. Scott in the free TV premiere of The Formula. All these and more in July on TV-24. We're your movie station, Milwaukee.
You give a cigarette to your unborn child. You do. Every time you smoke while you're pregnant. Pregnant mothers, please, don't smoke.
Call 453-4500 for further information.
The 3 men who hijacked that TWA plane have now been identified by Lebanon. Beirut Radio today listed the 3 terrorists who commandeered the jet and killed a Navy diver. The broadcast said the hijackers would be put on trial, but political sources say it may be impossible to capture the hijackers inside Muslim West Beirut. The White House called today's announcement a step in the right direction for Lebanon. Spokesman Larry Speaks repeated the call to have those hijackers prosecuted, whether it be in Lebanon or in the United States. But Jeff Kamen reports talk of legal punishment is not eliminating possible plans for military punishment.
The president's spokesman confirmed today that Mr. Reagan now believes that military force should be part of America's overall response to terrorism, possibly including bombing known terrorist bases in Lebanon. The confirmation of this report in the Washington Post was the latest in a series of statements by the president and his closest advisors, which raised the expectation that the U.S. will soon strike terrorists with more than words. But the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Republican David Durenberger, says the administration is wrong to talk about retaliation.
I know that we are not that capable of targeting our retaliation. I say, hey, don't overpromise. I mean, don't let either the American people or these terrorists over there believe that that you have the capability of some kind of a surgical strike that takes out all the right targets, if in fact you don't have it.
The Intelligence Committee chairman says the Reagan administration has failed thus far to produce an intelligence strategy for dealing with terrorism. He believes the United States should consider killing known terrorists, if possible, before they attack. So does liberal Democrat Alan Cranston of California, a member of the Foreign Relations Committee.
We have to be prepared to use force against terrorists. If that means death to the terrorists, we are subjected to acts of war by them. and we have to retaliate as if we are at war.
Here at the White House, the president's advisors are keeping close watch over what appears to be an important mood shift in Congress, away from anger and frustration over terrorist attacks and toward a determined desire for direct military action against terrorists. On the surface, at least, that would appear to indicate that the president could count on broad-based political support for military retaliation against terrorist targets. But an expert on counterterrorism who is an advisor to the White House doesn't buy that. Dr. Robert Kupperman says the tough mood in Congress could disappear in just a few months, leaving the administration holding the bag alone and vulnerable to congressional criticism.
The CIA and the military, or whomever does the deed, will be hauled before them and castigated beyond belief.
For the Independent News, Jeff Kamen at the White House.
The life of one of the TWA hostages may have been saved by the hostage crisis. When Simon Grossmayer and the other hostages were freed, they were sent to West Germany, where they underwent physical examinations. A cancerous tumor was found on Grossmayer's back. He was operated on in Chicago Wednesday. Doctors say the cancer was serious and the surgery may have saved his life. He was released from the hospital earlier today. Well, the world will have to wait at least another week to learn whether Coke or Pepsi perform better in space. Special cans of the two soft drinks were on the shuttle Challenger today, which did not make it off the launch pad.
T-minus 16 seconds. The computers have armed the SRB ignition, hold down post, and T0 umbilical. T-minus 10.
We're hot, and the countdown had reached 3 when the launch was aborted.
5, 4, 3, 2. We have an RSLS abort. We have an abort.
Apparently, there was a valve problem in the number 2 engine. NASA says the crew of 7 was in no danger, and from the cockpit, Commander Gordon Fullerton said, "We're disappointed, but in good shape." A group of teachers did get off the ground, and it was a learning experience. The 10 teachers are candidates to fly on a future space shuttle. Today, they were on a NASA plane that flew a roller coaster course, creating brief periods of weightlessness. There's no doubt that these pictures taken by NASA were carefully edited by NASA. You see none of the passenger discomfort that has led this plane to be called the Vomit Comet.
Breakfast in a tropical paradise. Great idea.
Call it native brilliance.
Brilliance? But you forget the name of your favorite cereal.
With all this tropical fruit, it's fruit and...
Yeah?
Post Fruit and Fiber Tropical Fruit. Tastes so good you forget the fiber. The goodness of high fiber with sunny pineapple, crunchy banana chips, and coconut. So all you remember is...
It's fruit and tropical fruit.
Lost in paradise.
Post Fruit and Fiber cereal. Tastes so good you forget the fiber.
You've been traded, Rolaids. For acid and gas, your performance is not up to tempo.
Sorry, but you're fired, Malox. You don't work hard enough. I'm switching to Tempo.
Our relationship is over, Tums. I found someone better. Tempo.
For better relief from acid and gas, people everywhere are switching to Tempo. Its soft form holds 75% more acid-relieving medicine than Rolaids. And soft Tempo dissolves fast. Switch to better relief. Switch to soft Tempo.
I'm glad I found you.
Time is running out for many people who must have an organ transplant to save their lives. The need for human organs is critical. What can you do? You can help us locate donors. And by agreeing to become an organ donor yourself, you can give the most precious gift of all, a second chance at life. Before it's too late, call 1-800-ACT-GIVE. Arrange to become an organ donor today.
Sidney Poitier stars as Mr. Tibbs in the thrilling sequel, The Organization. Can he break a major drug ring? Barbara McNair and Sidney Poitier stars Saturday night at 7.
It's being called the heavyweight champion of the skies, and at a hefty price. Today, the Pentagon rolled out the $50 million C-5B cargo jet. It's the world's largest plane and can carry a squadron of helicopters, 2 tanks, and plenty of troopers all at the same time. 50 more of the jets are on order from the Lockheed Georgia Corporation. The plan is to make the jet the military's workhorse, but some critics see it as an enormously expensive white elephant. They claim the C-5B's massive size makes it impractical to send into combat zones. A U.S. military helicopter exploded in flight today and crashed in Okinawa, Japan. All 4 Marines on board were killed. The copter involved was a CH-53D Sea Stallion. Today's was the third fatal accident involving a sea stallion in the last 18 months. Officials are still trying to determine the cause of the crash. It's an old idea that's gaining new popularity: manufactured housing, housing built on an assembly line. Alec Roberts reports it's less expensive, a cheaper alternative to building your traditional home sweet home.
A matchbox of our own, a fence of real chain link.
Owning your own home is still the American dream. But when these were built, they cost less than $10,000. Those were the good old days. The average price of a new house today is $106,000, out of the reach of most Americans. Most Americans like Frances Moore.
It's important to me, very important to have a place of my own and settle down with my 2 children and just start to enjoy life.
The Moore's house was built at the Deluxe Homes plant in Berwick, Pennsylvania. Everyone knows modular or prefab housing is a lot cheaper, up to 50% less. But now they've improved the quality.
Nowadays, you're using materials exactly as they're being used on site. Where you had paneling, now you have half-inch drywall. Where you had basically no insulation, now you have very high R-rated walls, floors, and ceilings.
The modular home industry must meet stringent code requirements. And since they're mass-produced, they usually comply with the code of the strictest state in which they're sold. For about $40,000, you can have a 3-bedroom home, complete with carpeting, kitchen cabinets, and all appliances. Add about $10,000 for the land and development costs, depending on where you live, and you have a house in move-in condition for about $50,000. 5 years ago, Deluxe was making about 350 houses a year. This year, they'll turn out over 1,000. And their experience parallels what's happening in the entire industry.
This is affordable housing, but quality housing.
The biggest winners will be the Moores and their children.
In a tractor that we share, somewhere that's green.
For the Independent News, I'm Alec Roberts.
After an up-and-down day, the Dow closed at a new record high. Winners top losers by a 4-3 margin.
3 and 4. See, aerobics is a lot tougher than it looks. Just one more routine to go.
Oh, no.
This one helps keep you fit inside.
Fit inside?
It's Kellogg's Bran Flakes. You get lots of fiber to help keep your insides fit and running smooth.
Oh.
And now 100% of the iron you need each day.
How do they taste?
Really good. Come on, you'll like this exercise. You just lift the spoon.
Ooh.
Kellogg's Bran Flakes does the rest.
Take care of the inside.
Your days go by fast. Your work never seems to end.
That's why Whirlpool refrigerators are designed to make your world a little easier. Our most advanced model has a new monitoring and control system you can program for maximum cooling, and our famous no-fingerprint doors. Whirlpool, quality appliances.
We're making your world a little easier. Whirlpool makes it easier for you.
In our USA Notebook tonight, what's in a saying? In this particular case, the old saying about someone touching your heart. Charles Seeley is alive today because someone touched his heart, literally touched his heart. The man who touched Seeley's heart is Meredith Scott, Dr. Meredith Scott, a heart surgeon at Orlando Hospital in Florida. Seeley, who is 20 years old, had been knifed in the heart and brought into the emergency room. While life support equipment was being readied, the doctor poked one of his fingers into the hole in Seeley's heart. It stemmed the flow, said Dr. Scott. He added, some people say the best surgical instrument is still the hand. No doubt Charles Seeley would agree. Tonight he's listed in good condition. Is your crooked grin taking a bite out of your social life? Are your pearly whites plagued with plaque? Well, brace yourself for a solution. Ed Miller reports on a new dental procedure.
You know, I haven't smiled in years.
That's because Kathy Glennon had crooked teeth, and she felt she was too old for braces. Enter Dr. Irwin Smigel, dentist to some of New York's biggest celebrities and one of the creators of a new dental technique called porcelain laminates. Laminates are handmade duplicates of the original tooth. It is similar to bonding, but takes that process one step further. The porcelain is tough, more lifelike than bonding's plastic, and these new shields should last forever. Porcelain laminates can turn troubled teeth like these into million-dollar smiles.
They don't chip, they don't stain, and the results are sensational.
And an entire mouth can be done in only 2 office visits. David Mahoney had his teeth bonded when he was a teenager, but since he grinds his teeth in his sleep, the bonding chipped away. In this particular case, the laminates are not only cosmetic, they are also corrective, since David's bite was irregular, with many top teeth not meeting the bottom. The process begins by making an exact duplicate mold of the patient's mouth. Then, dentist and patient together decide the color, the shape, and the length of the porcelain laminates.
The veneer is roughly 0.5 of a millimeter thick.
A mild acid is applied to the surface of the real tooth to roughen it. That allows the laminate to be glued right on top. The laminate will not stick until the adhesive is activated by this special blue visible light. Since the laminates are forever, the blue light is a safeguard to make sure nothing gets glued until everything is lined up perfectly.
So you don't feel anything, there's no pain whatsoever.
And how much does all this cost? Depending upon how much work the real tooth needs, anywhere from $250 to $750 per tooth. In David's case, he wanted 8 on top and 8 on the bottom. That's the entire smile area. Total price tag, $10,000.
It is an expensive process, but it made me feel better about myself.
For the Independent News, I'm Ed Miller.
For a newsman, it was the place to be and the time to be there.
Me for the words, me for the pictures.
Because for Indonesia, 1964 was the turning point. For the world, it was a vision of the hell to come.
Yeah, but that is, you are on it.
Get you out.
Jim, I'm staying.
When this thing breaks, it could change the whole political shape of Southeast Asia.
Mel Gibson, Sigourney Weaver, Oscar winner Linda Hunt. The year of living dangerously.
A free TV premiere Monday night at 7 on TV-24.
Nobody. Not the police officer who arrests you for drunk driving. Not the lawyer you hire to defend you. Not even the judge who convicts you. Nobody can prevent you from losing your driver's license for at least 90 days if you are convicted of drunk driving. It's simple. The day you are convicted of drunk driving is the day you will lose your license. In Milwaukee, it's guaranteed.
The Independent News, brought to you by Kellogg's Bran Flakes and by Whirlpool.
We've all seen the pictures from Ethiopia, men, women, and children starving to death. One man had an idea. Irish rock singer Bob Geldof has created a musical feast designed to fight famine. Tomorrow on both sides of the Atlantic, some of the world's greatest musicians will be reaching for the stars, performing at concerts in London and Philadelphia, raising millions to feed the world. We have these reports.
Sitting in the stand of the sports arena, waiting for the show to begin.
For Bob Geldof, the waiting is almost over. His dream of a global jukebox to raise millions for the starving of Africa is about to become a reality. The huge revolving stage has been finished. The array of lights and the video screens have been installed. The bands have rehearsed, and the technicians are ready. Now the world is waiting for Live Aid. Television pictures will go out live on Eurovision and via Intelsat to the USA. The signals cross America by domestic satellites before being routed to Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and South America. Meanwhile, another Intelsat feeds Live Aid to the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and free to Africa.
July 13th, 1 billion people all over the planet will tune in to a music event that will never be repeated.
Back in Britain, Elton John has been secretly rehearsing one of the show's highlights, a duet with George Michael of Wham.
The spirit of the day is that everyone just goes on and does a couple of numbers, and there's no rank being pulled, I don't think, by anybody. Otherwise, I think Bob Geldof would have said, you know, we don't need you. So the actual feeling about the concert is so exciting. I think it's going to be marvellous.
To me, it is not a pop concert. To me, it's not a TV show. To me, it's simply a means of keeping people alive.
The stage is set in Philadelphia for an epic of rock history, a 17-hour music marathon that will be beamed by satellite to most of the world's 600 million TV sets. The goal, to raise as much as $60 million to feed starving victims of the African famine. The Rock Against Famine movement began last December with an all-star British group called Band-Aid. The ringmaster is veteran rock promoter Bill Graham.
We also have so many firsts or one-timers. We have Plant and Page doing Led Zeppelin songs for the first time in many years. We have Mick Jagger singing without the Rolling Stones, singing with Hall & Oates' band and singing with Tina. We have the great Teddy Pendergrass coming back and singing with Ashford and Simpson.
The Live Aid concert, as it's called, is so big that even the biggest stars will have to leave their egos behind. There's not much in the way of star treatment backstage for the likes of Madonna, Mick Jagger, Tina Turner, Bob Dylan, and other rock celebrities donating their talents to famine relief. Everything about this concert is being donated. The food, the $35 tickets, 90,000 seats sold overnight in Philadelphia, TV rights, even the merchandising logo, the African continent shaped into an electric guitar. So many last-minute details are being worked out that there are still lots of maybes to this concert. Maybe the Beatles will get together again. George, Paul, and Ringo singing along with Julian Lennon, son of slain Beatle John Lennon, for an emotional finale to this greatest show in rock. At JFK Stadium in Philadelphia, I'm Barry Cunningham.
While the two biggest shows will be in England and the U.S., bands will also take the stage in Australia, Japan, Germany, and Holland. In addition, a Soviet rock group will perform live from Moscow, making Live Aid a truly international telethon to battle hunger. Updating our top story this evening, President Reagan will undergo major surgery tomorrow afternoon to remove a growth in his upper intestine. Doctors are concerned that the growth is potentially cancerous. The growth was discovered during a minor operation today to remove a benign polyp from the president's colon. And that's the independent news for this Friday, July 12th. I'm Morton Dean. Have a good night and a good weekend.
If you're a wrestling fan, what you're seeing now tells you that All-Star Wrestling is a main event. If you're not a wrestling fan, what you're seeing now might just convince you to change your mind. There's no sport like it. Experience the world of All-Star Wrestling every Saturday night at 6 and Sunday morning at 11. It's a showdown.
The Salvation Army accomplishes so much with so little. Most people don't really know about this community service. At our local Salvation Army Center, for instance, people who want to regain control of their lives get full help. It all starts with your donations of usable materials needed for work therapy. Care of mind, body, and spirit are all part of this residence program. Please help by calling for the Salvation Army Red Shield truck.
Watch this character for just a few seconds, and you'll see why he's worth his weight in laughs.
Oh, butterball in the sky. Begin.
Watch the laughable, lovable Mort and Mindy, weeknights at 5:30 here on TV-24. This is TV-24, WCGV, Milwaukee.
WCGV-TV, Channel 24 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, now concludes another broadcast day. WCGV-TV is licensed by the Federal Communications Commission to operate on a frequency of 530 to 536 megahertz and broadcast at an effective radiated power of 3 million watts. Channel 24 is owned and operated by B&F Broadcasting Incorporated with studios at 5445 North 27th Street and transmitter located at 3950 North Holton Street in Milwaukee. Join us again tomorrow for another day of fine television programming.